Now it's time for the Keeping It Real portion of Real Talks. My name is Trina Celeste Gatson, and I am here with Dr. Jessica Richardson.
Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start off by asking you, as a speech-language pathologist, what keeps you motivated and innovative with your research?
The patient and their circle would be my first answer. When you've worked with them, I used to work with children. I thought autism was going to be my life, and I loved it. Could still do it probably, but there's definitely something very different about a population, at least from my view and my experience, who was born a certain way and have never known what they have lost. And I was just more touched sometimes in one-on-one situations where they're just acutely aware of this was life before and then this is life after. And I felt like I could do more and help more and just be more of a service with that population. And then when you deal with them day to day and talk with them and become friends with them and get invited to the Christmas parties and the fish fries, you know, it just keeps sucking you in the best way, and then it changes your life. So for me, I collect their quotes, and they change my life daily and motivate me daily to just want to keep going and to do more. And then my needs as a clinician and a researcher, they're just tools that I don't have, and there's information that I don't know that I feel could be important if I could just fill in some blanks, and then I could help these people that I love so much. So kind of those things working together are really motivation and innovation, and then just good support networks. I have great mentors.
I definitely agree with you, especially as a clinical therapist as well, that bond that you experience with your patients. You talked a lot about the research that you're doing, and you have your hands in a lot. Funding is a very important aspect of research. What advice would you give to researchers and universities looking for research dollars?
I mean, I'm still a learner in this area. I think that's part of the unwritten contract that you sign in academia, that you're always going to be a lifetime learner when it comes to money and how to get it. Some of the best advice that I've been given is to know your funding agencies and to know what they're looking for and to know the strategic plan. So the NIH and other funding agencies, they will actually report their strategic plan. This is what we're going to fund for the next 5 years. Know that, and it can help you guide your research questions, not necessarily to change what you're going to ask to fit it, but to tell you how you should frame things, right, to meet your needs as well as their needs. If you can go somewhere that has infrastructure for you, that can help you search for grants and help you write grants and have grant readers that you don't have to pay for, that's definitely best case scenario, but it's not at every university, it's not at every placement. The innovation is really key now, which there's pros and cons. Yes, I think innovation is really great, but there's so much value in replication, and research was, I mean, scientific method was kind of like built on that, right? If you see it once, you need to see it twice, and I need to make sure that these results are real. There's not as much funding for replication as there should be. Innovation is really key, and then making sure you know what the climate is for what people are interested in, and how you can, again, frame it to, you really, grant writing is kind of persuasive writing. So it's factual, and you've got to have all your ducks in a row, and you've got to have your preliminary studies, but it's also, you've got to be very persuasive. I would never read any guidelines that say you don't have to have preliminary data or pilot information, because you're just going to get, you're not going to get the grant. Teamwork, getting a good team, having more enthusiastic people on your team than naysayers, but making sure that you're listening to the critiques and vision.
Wow. Fantastic. One thing that you speak a lot about that definitely interests me is the impact of strokes on activity and life participation in both the person with a stroke and the caregiver. Why do you think it is important to consider the caregivers?
There's a lot of reasons, a lot of levels. As a human being, they need help. Right. My mom is a caregiver of a cancer survivor, and I've seen what it's done to her and her health, and then when you're treating these patients, I mean, you talk to their caregivers and you hear their stories, and I mean, it's heartbreaking sometimes, and they don't have support networks. For some of the research that we're doing now, if you've ever given the Community Integration Questionnaire, the CIQ, there's one question on there that says, do you have a best friend in whom you can confide? And so we give this to persons with aphasia, and we give this to the caregivers. And out of the 40 PWAs and out of the 30 caregivers we've given it to, only one person each has said that they have a friend in whom they confide. They need support. They need help. It's affecting them in different ways, but very negatively, and a lot of the caregivers. So as a human being, I want to help them. As a clinician, I know that if I help them and serve them, that I'm helping the rehab process of my patient. As a researcher, the caregivers come for my 4-hour batteries, and they sit out there in the waiting room, and they would love the opportunity, and they do, to tell their story. Like, they are like, oh, you're asking me, not just about their behaviors, but you're asking me about me. And also, as a clinician and a researcher and a human being, I guess just knowing that they could potentially be my next stroke patients, and if I can do anything to prevent that, then I'm doing something good.
Wow, fantastic. I definitely agree with you. Life participation approach is something that you spoke about, and it deals with treating the whole patient. What does that mean to you, the whole patient?
It means a lot of different things to different people.
Right.
When I have to operationalize it for a grant or a paper, I usually frame it within the WHO ICF framework. So it's one of the best ways, and I think the most relatable ways to do it. But thinking about all of these domains, and not just thinking about one certain behavior, and contextual factors. If you read everything that's under contextual factors and personal factors in the WHO ICF that we are supposed to, that we are charged to look at, it's a lot of stuff that we don't necessarily consider as clinicians, or again, have the right materials for, or get training for, to administer, or definitely not reimbursed to look at, So it's, for me, again, most of the time I would frame it within WHO ICF, but other people might frame it in different ways.
Okay. Do you believe that as a profession we have begun to make this clinical shift in considering the whole patient?
Define begun. We talk about it.
Right.
There's definitely a lot of emphasis on, yes, we need to do it.
Right.
Yes, we should do it. There's not money for it. There's not organizational support for it. There's no political support for it. We're not lobbying, I think, effectively for it. So no, I don't think we're making that shift. I think that there's a lot of papers that started in the late 90s and early 2000s about LPAA, and I feel sometimes like it's 1999, but we're quite far removed from that, and there haven't been a whole lot of significant changes in how we're really able to get these services. We're still kind of stuck in the same rut and funded in the same rut. I think that TBI has a great model that we should follow. There's a pretty solid evidence base and funding support for their comprehensive holistic treatment approach that they have for TBI, and I think that it would do us well to look to that as a model for where we should go in seeking funding and in programming and the interdisciplinary aspect, and working together, where they don't go to speech and then they go to this and then they go to this and then they go to counseling. They're doing it all together. And the caregiver is involved, and there's education, there's community education. We're very far away from it, but I think we're going in the right direction, just not as fast as I would like, but I'm pretty impatient generally.
Do you believe that the university has a role? I mean, you as a professor and working at a university, do you believe that some of that education needs to start at that level?
For our clinicians?
Right. And training our clinicians to even start to think in this realm. I know as a undergrad and graduate student, I necessarily wasn't exposed to that type of treatment, more so the traditional therapy practices that we're kind of stuck to now. So do you think that it needs to start at that university level?
Yeah, I think it needs to be like a multi-pronged approach, but clinical education is key. We need to to keep generating clinicians who are going to know this and know how to express it in a way that doesn't offend, and more recruit people to come along and think with me about the WHO ICF2, and here's some tools, and here's how I work with a team. So yes, I think it's very important. I know that it's something that is discussed a lot in the evidence-based practice literature. It's discussed a lot in the interprofessional education literature. So it's just kind of pulling those pieces together and figuring out how to actually incorporate it into all of our coursework, into our assessment courses, into every patient contact that we have. But yeah, we can't do it without making changes at all of the levels.
Right. Right. One thing that we're doing here at Real Talks is asking our professionals to sum up their take-home message in 6 words or less. And so if you're able to sum up the take-home message in 6 words or less.
I'm pretty loquacious. I'm paraphrasing Napoleon Hill, but it said, goals are dreams with deadlines. So for your patients, for you and whatever you want to do, for caregivers, dream it, give it a deadline, make it a goal. Goals are dreams with deadlines.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Anything else you want to add?
We have work to do. There's a lot of work to do. Come on, and get PhDs, people.
Yes.
Get PhDs. We need you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Richardson.
Thank you very much.